You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready?
Hello, it is time for another episode of The Ready Writer. I am your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest is Louise Chadborne. Let's get the show started. So, was being an author a childhood dream of yours?
It really was not. I had purchased a home, then I needed a special guard dog, hence the bull mastiff. And after he passed away, I felt very empty, a huge void inside of me. So then I decided to write down all my lovely memories of Granite and paper and pen, because that's what you did back then. I'm the old dinosaur. And I wrote all of that down and I had put it away because I was working full time. And all of a sudden, I retired 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I said I was going to do my book for Granite the Bull Mastiff story. I need to do it. And I pulled out all the paperwork and had met a children's author, Thea, and she had told me that she was a publisher. And what do you say when you meet a publisher? I've got a book for you. And she laughed, I laughed, and she's like, okay, sure, Louise, why don't you get the book to me? And I'm like, great, I have the paper and pen. I'll get it over to you. Louise, you need to do PDF. I'm like, oh no, PDF. So I figured that out. 3 days later, she outreached to me and she's like, you do have a book. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So if I can, put a book together 24 years ago and have it be now, anyone can do that. Anyone can. It's such a great feeling.
So, you seem to you're I don't want to say you're the first. You're one of the first guests I've had who um didn't grow up wanting to be an author and didn't really have any reservations, didn't have any second thoughts. You said, I'm going to do it. And you knew it was going to happen. Did you have any fears, or was it you just did it?
I did not have any fears. And I believe that everything lines up, for a reason. And being retired, having a little more time, and I am very determined. So back in the day when I said that writing is going to be a book, and here it is, there's the book, it was definitely going to happen. The fear came, and it's more of like a control issue with me because I like to have more control over, different things. So for me to have to say, well, I'm not sure I want to change the word in that book, or, the picture of Granite, and the illustrator had done a wonderful job. However, I'm like, well, the bull mastiff looks a little cartoony. And Thea would be like, Louise, it's a children's book. It's supposed to look that way. And I'm like, well, oh, okay, if you're sure, and I had to let go of some of that control that I've always had. However, we did negotiate because I love to negotiate. And I'm like, well, I need a real live picture of Granite in the book, though. And he is in the book raking. He loves to rake. I never prompted him to pick up the rake or anything. That was one of his household chores. So I didn't really have much fear. It was more determination, because even at work, when I was working, people like, yeah, Louise, you're going to do a book. And the people who really knew me, they're like, oh, look out when she puts her mind to it. So anyone can do this. And I really want people to get that clear message. If I've done it, anyone can do anything you put your mind to.
What was a lesson learned in publishing that you learned that you are going to use hopefully for the next book?
Oh, great question. I will let go more of the control stuff. And there is a book too that is already done. I may need to add a little more to it. However, for me, due to, issues with the COVID and all of that, I really felt that I didn't get to do everything I wanted to do with the book for the book in ways of, getting it out there more. Now, don't get me wrong. I was busy last year. I was setting up anywhere and everywhere. However, this year I want to focus on all the places that I did not get to last year and try to accomplish that. Again, timing is very crucial with, the way the world is right now. So I may have to wait till we can do more things outside yet again. So I'm not sure if that totally answered your question. I like the process of the publishing. The illustrator, he did a phenomenal job. And I feel like that's half the battle too, that if you're doing a book, you really do need, the illustrations to pop, and, the cover is very, very important. I did learn that. And right away, believe it or not, and I don't talk about that too much, I knew what the cover would be immediately when I started writing down my memories, and I wanted that to pop to catch the children. And what better way than a huge bull mastiff dog taking the owner, which was me, water skiing across the front lawn.
Wow.
And that really happened.
That's cute. So you said book 2. Are you do you have intentions of making a series? It sounds like a lifelong series. Like this can turn into 20 plus books. Is that something you foresee?
I would love for that to happen, definitely. I'm not sure about 20 books. I like that number though. I may borrow that number. I can tell you in book number 2, I also I love animals. So let me start with that. And I had adopted a umbrella cockatoo, huge, huge, huge bird. And let me tell you, there are a lot of shenanigans that happened with a 165-pound bull mastiff Granite and Kojak, the umbrella cockatoo. Lot of great stories there. So that actually could probably go a few books as well with the two of them and how they played together. So I like your thinking.
Yes, it just sounds like a great especially once a child gets that book 2, it seems like a book where a child will say, I can't wait to the next one, and then I can't wait to the next one. So it's definitely an idea you can play around with.
Right,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. So what is the title of the book, and just a brief summary of the book?
Okay, it is Granite the Bull Mastiff story. And he goes from being a little tiny puppy, 8 pounds, to 165 pounds, where his head, all muscle, and he loves to interact. So he's talking to you and asking you questions as well, and talking about all his lovely adventures with the family. And there are also pet tips in there. And in the back, there are a few blank pages where people can either make a picture of a pet they know or had. They can answer the questions. Granite talks about, the different color fur that they have, and ask, what color was your hair when you were born, and really interacting. And I have to let you know too, Casey, that adults have read that book. And I'm getting a lot of great feedback also from the adults that are reading the book, which is pretty cool.
Yes, it is. Thank you for the extra pages. It's nice to have extra, with the
Yes.
pet tips and the extra pages for writing and drawing. I like that idea.
Thank you.
So with COVID, as we mentioned earlier, with COVID, it's more challenging for artists as a whole to get out there and market themselves, market their products or services. What creative ideas have you been coming up with to continue to market during this time?
Great question. I keep a bunch of books in my vehicle. So wherever I am, I'm not shy about, saying, hey, I just wrote a children's book and it's published, can I show you? I also, when I make phone calls, people may think that this is a little different. When I make phone calls, like to check on a credit card balance or whatever, and I'm interacting on the phone, I'm like, oh, can I take a quick moment of your time, please? I recently wrote, a children's book. Here's the name of it. And people are like, they're not like, they are interacting and they're like, well, I have grandchildren. Where can I find your book? Or I've already told them where they can find it. And I do a lot of word of mouth. I really believe that really takes off. Then on Facebook, there are different groups, whether it be somebody's selling jewelry or whatever. I started forming relationships with them, and they've all started to buy my book. Then when they're going live and they see that I'm online, they're like, hey, Lou or Louise is here. Mention your book to them. Hey, everybody, she's got a book. We've got it. My granddaughter or my child, they like it. And it just starts to form, its own little gathering of, people interested. And the cultural councils, a lot of people aren't aware of this. You can definitely, they always have money that they're trying to find a happy home for. And if you go online, you can apply for a grant. And I recently was awarded some money. So at the local library, I will be doing a reading and kind of a interacting coloring play type thing. And 15 children will be able to get the book thanks to that grant money. So I highly suggest checking that out wherever you may be. And they're located worldwide. And small businesses, I have to give my kudos to them. I support every small business I can. And now it's my turn. They're like, hey, we heard that you have a book. Or I walk in and I'm like, gee, I have a book now. Do you mind? And they're all opening the doors for me. They're like, come, we'll carry your book. We'll have you do an event. And it's wonderful. Small businesses are spectacular.
I must say I admire your boldness, because it could, even though it may sound inappropriate, you never know what it could do when you say you're on the phone with an operator and hey, by the way, I just recently had a problem with something I had from AT&T, so I called them and they fixed it. And all operators, the last thing they say is there anything else we can help you with today? And I don't know that any author has ever thought to say, hey, by the way, I just published a book, it's here. And even though people may say it's inappropriate, it's, now that I think about it, being in customer service myself, I know sometimes you can get customers who are just not nice, and no matter what you do, no matter how you help, they're just not nice. And so during that 5-8 hour shift they're on, you never know how angry they can be, how upset they can be, how frustrated they can be, and that alone could change or shift, their mindset, shift, because sometimes if their mind can be on, oh, I hate that customer, how could they do that to me? And that, that negative thinking. And then here you go, I just published a book, here's the website, that can completely shift their thinking and put them back on, the path of, positivity. And so I think that's an amazing idea. It's just something I never thought to do. And I think it's amazing that you do that naturally and you have no problem doing it. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope, I guess no matter what you do, if in entrepreneur in any kind of way, you can do that. So that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that so much. With that said, you being so, out there and bold and not afraid and not ashamed, what encouraging words would you give someone who is, because you can say, because even on Twitter, I see people, aspiring writers, who say, hey, oh, I'm not sure if I'm good enough. I have a dream of being an author, I just don't know. Or they're just for whatever reason, they just haven't started writing. What advice would you give someone who's on that fence of not being an author and being an author?
Right. Definitely do not self-sabotage. Any negative type thinking, negative type wording, it comes easy for all of us. However, you really need to change that. You really do, because I believe when you put the positive out there, and I've seen it happen, it comes back to you tenfold. Yes, it may be difficult to do because if you've kind of been in your, you really need to say, hey, first of all, I'm here, I'm alive. That's a great day, no matter what, even if you're going through some not nice stuff, and change it up and say, I am able to do that. Why, why not? I mean, you're here. Now's the time to, you're not given any more extra time, and take everything. Just do it within reason, because there are some people that might watch and say, hey, she said do it all. I don't mean it in that sense. Do things, reasonably. However, if you've got writing sitting there, I had it for 24 years. Believe me, I get it. However, I always had the positive in my head. I am going to do a book. So I am, no more I can't. That literally, picture it going out in the trash. You're throwing the trash away, done. And let me tell you, you'll start to see all the positive happening around you. I really do guarantee that. I'm a tad bit older than you, and I've seen it happen. And you bring up a good example. There are some people that just, they want to give you a hard time. They just, they really can't get out of that. I'm not sure why. However, don't let that person bring you down. And I agree, there are people, when you're doing customer service, telephone operating, I'm always, hi, how are you? And I hope you have a good day, and you really helped me, and I really appreciate, I mean, I really put all that out there. And then you're right, I do say, and I've got the book. Because believe it or not, people, the worst word you've heard is no. That's not a big deal. No is not a big deal. Just try again. Pick yourself back up, and you can have the world. You really can. And if it doesn't happen today, that's somewhat okay though too, because it will definitely happen when it's supposed to happen. And you may not, and again, I'm a control freak. I I I'm learning to let go a lot more, and it's all working out. If, some people want it today. I'm one of those. I want it today. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm not meant to have it today, that's okay. I'm still going to have it. And there you go. I am.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. When you said I can't remember who said it, and how I heard it. I just remember someone saying, or maybe I read it somewhere, instead of saying I can't, ask yourself, how can I? Because saying I can't closes your mind to the possibilities of how you can do something. And you may not be able to do it the way you thought you should, or someone told you you should. Saying how can I helps you to see the other possible ways you can do it. And so you can do it. It's possible, especially for me. Um, I grew up in taking, I wasn't that good of a student, period. English
Right.
class all through school. I got C's and B's, sometimes D's. It was rare that I got an A. So when I thought of publishing a book, I didn't think I should, because I, didn't understand grammar, content. And what I did was I just retaught myself. I, got books. I went online and started reteaching myself what I learned in school, just didn't grasp it. And then, of course, I learned about editors, finding editors. So there is ways you can. You just have to, you know, figure that out, and you can. So thank you so much. I don't want to seem to offend anyone else when I say this though, but I definitely like the fact that out of all the people guests I've had, you're very much a go-getter and very much a like I said, bold. You just even, you just, hey, by the way, I published a book, and so many times we're taught that that's, I hate it when they say shameless self-promoting, as if it's like,
Uh,
why say shameless as if you're supposed to be ashamed? You know what I mean? Like there should be
right.
no shame in it whatsoever. So we shouldn't have to say shameless, just promote yourself. And I like the fact that you just do it without the thought of, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, shouldn't is not in my vocabulary. Sometimes that gets me in trouble. That's okay. I'll deal with the consequence.
Right.
You know, you won't know if you don't try. And if you're sitting there saying, gee, get up off the couch and move forward.
Yes, thank you so much. So, last question. Actually, before I get to the last question, for those who don't know, this horribly, for whatever reason, we did this interview and it wasn't recording, so I asked her to do it again. My apologies. One of the things you mentioned, which I like, because I'll tell you after you mention it why I liked how you shared how you set up when you were doing um, festivals, whatever, how you shared up set up your table with the dog bed and things like that. Can you mention that again of how you get people to come to your table and how you notice, like you said, you look like you have a question and things like that nature. Can you reshare that?
Yes, I had, you need to draw children, people, whatever, your book is. You need to set your table up, very important. And I had the dog bed and a lot of Granite's toys. And I also had what I call non-edibles, which are, I don't like to put food out because then things get a little too complicated with that. So like I would buy pencils, pens, colored pencils, erasers, and I'd put them out in actually dog dishes I had. And I also had different pictures of, Granite and his brothers and sisters out there. And even though I'm bold, it can be a little intimidating. And when I first, was setting up, I'm like, oh, some people are walking by. They want to go check out the popcorn machine. They want to, go over here. And I would be like, yoo-hoo, you come on over, you look like you have a question, can I see what your question might be? And then we'd get to talk. And some people actually had questions about writing and publishing with, their own thoughts and ideas. And we would exchange phone numbers, or if I had cards, I would give them cards. I'd give cards of my publisher. And, people would then feel a little more comfortable because it's all about, you need to pull information from people. And sometimes people, themselves are a bit, skittish. They're not sure if they should approach a table. So you really have to be friendly. And I get if you're a little shy, you need to work on coming out of that a tad bit, however you're able to, and just say, come on over. And then with different people, I would go look at their tables, they'd come look at my tables. And there's a lot of great networking going on there because I had met a person who owned a ceramic place. And she's like, Louise, I've got an idea. What do you think? We'll do a little dog ceramic. We'll put your book in the package deal. It's a win-win. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like a fantastic idea. So you really, hey, come on over here, how about a pen, a pencil? They didn't even have to buy. It's just about getting the word out. And then I did have my business cards. The first day I did not. So I learned you need business cards, little helpful hint there. And then I'd be like, well, would you at least take one or two, even if you, don't, want to get one, please, it's all about, and I would tell them, I need to get the word out. I'm, the one and only, trying to, get the book out more, and would you please do that? And people were like, sure. Then you have some people that are like, well, I don't need a book. I don't want a book. And I learned how to get around that too. I'm like, well, what I'm finding is some people who don't really need a book are, and I'm not saying you have to buy my book, just an idea for future, that they're getting the book and they're donating it to a local shelter for a fundraiser, or they're donating it to a local library, or they have a neighbor who has a child. So then that spins it around, and and they really don't have the final word, because if you've noticed with me, I want the final word. I want to plant that seed. I, 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 and you have to do it. You have to self-promote. You really do. And it's okay if things go slow. Right now, it's a slow time for me. I'm okay with that. I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's all going to come. It will happen. You keep, steady definitely is a good thing.
Yes, the reason why I wanted you to share that is because many times when people, before they choose to go out there, they read a book or they watch a webinar. And sometimes it could be, sometimes they don't purposely do it. Sometimes they'll, okay, this is the right way to do this. This is the right way. Don't only do it this way. This is what worked. Sometimes what works when one person doesn't work for another. And so if you're doing something because someone told you to do it and you don't feel comfortable with it, as you said, you got to draw people. People are not drawn to uncomfort. So if they can see you look uncomfortable, they're not going to visit your table. Whereas if you do something that makes you happy, something that's fun for you, and you set up your table that's fun, you'll be more comfortable with the table. And then you'll be able to interact with those who come. And like you said, you can call people over. You look like you have a question. Why don't you come over and see this book? And then even when they say, well, I don't need a book, you can donate it. It opens up your mind if you're more comfortable with your table than if you're doing something because a webinar told you this is the only right way to do it. In most cases, there are no one ways or one right way. There's just a way for you. And so I'm glad you're so open to do things that you realize work for you, that help you to get the word out about this book. So I'm excited for you, and I'm hoping that soon, hopefully during the summer, you'll be able to get out there more and share the book. So last question now, if you had the chance to have lunch or a conversation with a writer, any kind of writer, well-known, unknown, dead or alive, who would this writer be and why?
Great question. I'm going to go with Robert Frost. I just feel that he's very profound. He goes really deep into different emotions, gets you wondering, thinking, and helps, I think, process some of his poetry and whatnot. You're like, ooh, he's really going a little deep in there. Let me figure that out. I would go with him. A lot of people who know me, though, they're like, you love horror, you love all of that. What about Stephen King? He's wonderful too in his own right. And we all are, whether or not we're, not that famous, or we're working on building up to become that famous. So, and I'm going to think about that some more, because I'm sure there are a few more that mean the world to me for writing and all of that.
That is all the time we have for you today on The Ready Writer. I want to thank our guest, Louise Chadborne, for sharing, and you, the audience, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.